You know that feeling, right? When you hand over your most sensitive info online, your social security number, maybe credit card details, even private health stuff.
Hmm.
We kind of just trust there's this like invisible digital lock keeping it all safe. A fortress of encryption.
Yeah, it's an implicit trust, definitely.
But what if that lock, the very thing we're trusting, has a serious flaw? A critical one.
That's the scary part.
Today, we're peeling back the layers, taking a really deep dive into something that's, frankly, terrifyingly common. It's lurking in, get this, 67% of applications out there.
Wow, 67%.
Cryptographic failures. Sounds technical, I know, but it's a huge deal. It shot up to #2 on the OWASP Top 10 for 2021.
That's right.
And trust me, what it means for your digital life is way more urgent and actually pretty fascinating than you might think.
It really is. And, lots of people hear data breach and immediately think, oh, sophisticated hackers or like complex malware.
Right, the Hollywood image. Yeah.
Exactly. But cryptographic failures, they point to something maybe more fundamental, often tragically overlooked. It's a weakness in how data is supposed to be protected.
So it's not always an external attack.
Not necessarily. It can be the very mechanisms designed to keep our information secret just
Yeah.
falling short. We pulled together a lot for this deep dive: industry reports, research papers, real breach analyses.
Okay.
We're going to unpack everything, from the basics of crypto to, well, the biggest real-world disasters, and really explore why these failures seem to be getting even more common now.
So our mission today is pretty clear. Give you a real shortcut to understanding these absolutely critical vulnerabilities.
Yep.
We'll unpack why they're so common, how attackers specifically exploit them, and crucially, what can actually be done to stop them.
The prevention side is key.
Definitely. We'll even revisit that infamous 2017 Equifax breach, the one that hit almost half the U.S.
The
population.
massive wake-up call.
Exactly. We'll see precisely how these failures played out there. So get ready to get really well informed on something that underpins pretty much all our digital security. Whether you're a developer, a business owner, or honestly, just anyone using digital services day to day.
Okay, we mentioned those invisible digital locks, maybe not being so secure. Let's get specific. What are cryptographic failures, really, when you look under the hood?
Well, it sounds technical, like you said, but the core idea is pretty straightforward. It's about sensitive data just not being protected the way it absolutely should be.
And by sensitive data, we mean
Oh, the real crown jewels of your digital identity, your PII, right? Personally identifiable information.
like name, address, social security number.
Exactly. Your full name, home address, SSN. Then there's financial data, credit card numbers, bank details.
Your logins too, right? Keys to everything online.
Absolutely. Login credentials. And even super sensitive stuff like health records. Cryptographic failures mean that vital info isn't just vulnerable, it's often exposed in ways that are surprisingly easy for attackers to grab. Okay, so that's the what. But why are these failures so critical? What makes them different?
That's the crucial question. These failures happen when there are basic weaknesses or just improper use of encryption, hashing, key management, or even transport security.
So the tools are there, but they're used wrong.
Precisely.
Huh.
The safeguards are either inadequate to begin with, or they're just implemented incorrectly. It's not always about missing technology. Often it's a misapplication or a really glaring oversight.
Like using old tech.
Yeah, exactly. It could
Yeah.
be using outdated algorithms, things that used to be strong, but computers can crack easily now. Or maybe misconfiguring modern systems,
Yeah.
creating accidental loopholes. And sometimes it's as simple and as bad as just failing to encrypt sensitive data at all.
Seriously, just leaving it open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it's sitting in a database, we call that data at rest, or moving across the internet, data at transit. In any of those cases, the failure directly undermines that trust we put in apps every single day.
And the consequences, I imagine they're not small.
Oh, not at all. They're incredibly severe, far-reaching. We're talking massive data breaches hitting millions of people. Identity theft. Huge financial losses.
And for the companies.
Massive regulatory penalties. Think about GDPR in Europe, HIPAA for health info in the US, or PCI DSS for credit cards.
Right, those carry big fines.
Huge fines. And it isn't just an inconvenience, It's life-altering risks for individuals. Identity theft could ruin someone's finances, their reputation, expose health data. Devastating.
And the companies face more than just fines, right?
Absolutely. Millions, sometimes hundreds of millions in fines and legal costs, but also the reputational damage, the loss of customer trust. that can be almost impossible to repair fully. It has huge ripple effects.
So looking at the bigger picture here.
Well, the impact is really multifaceted. It goes way beyond that initial data exposure. For the people affected, it can mean direct identity theft, financial fraud, and honestly, a lifetime of looking over their shoulder checking credit reports.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. The emotional and financial toll is immense. And for the companies, it's not just the direct costs, the fines, the lawsuits, which are enormous. It's that catastrophic hit to their reputation.
Customer trust vanishes.
Exactly. It can take years, maybe decades to rebuild. A brand never fully recovers. It hits their bottom line, their stock price. In really bad cases, it can even threaten their existence. It's a total breakdown of confidence.
Okay, here's the part that really gets me, and it's frankly a bit disturbing. This isn't some rare edge case vulnerability, is it?
Not even close.
Cryptographic failures are found in, 67% of tested applications?
That's the number, 67%.
Two-thirds. That's staggering. Just makes you stop and think. And it jumped from third on the OWASP list in 2017 to second in 2021.
Yeah, that jump is significant. It really highlights its growing importance, especially as we rely more and more on complex crypto in our digital lives. As someone deep in this field, does that 67% number still kind of shock you?
It absolutely does. Every time I see it, it's the sheer prevalence, right, and the exploitability. These aren't just theoretical weaknesses hidden away.
They're common and often easy to exploit.
Often disturbingly easy. Think about modern development. There's huge pressure to ship features fast, speed over security sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. And crypto. It can feel like this complex black box developers are hesitant to mess with. So you get quick fixes, maybe copy-pasting old code or just relying on default settings they don't fully grasp.
Plus old systems still running, I bet.
Exactly. Legacy systems using old, insecure methods, and the inherent complexity of correctly setting up modern crypto systems. It all creates this fertile ground for bugs.
And attackers know this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They can exploit weak crypto with tools that are readily available, often free, like those rainbow tables for cracking weak password hashes.
Can you explain those quickly? How do they work?
Sure. Imagine a gigantic pre-calculated dictionary. But instead of words and definitions, it maps millions, even billions, of common passwords directly to their pre-computed hashes using a weak algorithm like MD5 or SHA-1.
So if an attacker steals the hashes...
They just look up the hash in the table and bam,
Yeah.
they instantly find the original password. No complex cracking needed for those common ones.
Wow.
Or they use simple network sniffers like Wireshark or BetterCab. If an app sends data unencrypted, these tools just grab it right off the network, plain as day.
So the ease of exploitation makes the risk much higher.
Dramatically amplifies it.
Yeah.
Turns a simple coding mistake into a wide-open door for attackers.
Okay, so to really get why these digital locks fail, we need to understand the tools they're built with, right? The basic building blocks.
Exactly.
Don't worry, we're not going into a super deep academic crypto lecture here.
No, keep it practical.
But knowing these key concepts, and maybe more importantly, where people commonly trip up with them, that'll really shed light on why these failures happen and why they're so bad. Think of these as the tools in the security toolbox. We'll talk about how they often get misused.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to put it. Because cryptography itself, when it's done right, is incredibly powerful, indispensable, really, for protecting information.
It's the misuse that's the problem.
Precisely. The misapplication, the poor implementation, sometimes just sheer oversight. That's what leads to these vulnerabilities. So let's touch on the core concepts, but focus on the practical side and common misunderstandings.
Oh, where do we start?
Let's start with encryption.
Yeah.
Basically, scrambling data so it's unreadable, using an algorithm and a secret key.
Right.
There are two main types. First, symmetric encryption. Think AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard. It uses a single key for both locking, encrypting, and unlocking, decrypting.
Like one key for a chest.
Exactly. It's fast, efficient, great for encrypting lots of data. The big challenge, though, is how do you securely share that single key?
Yeah.
Then there's asymmetric encryption, like RSA. This uses a pair of keys. A public key you can share widely to encrypt data meant for you, and a private key you keep totally secret to decrypt it.
The mailbox analogy, right? Anyone can drop a letter in the slot, public key, but only you have the key to open the box, private key.
Perfect analogy. It's great for secure key exchange and digital signatures. But a common mistake is not realizing it's much slower, computationally, than symmetric. So we don't usually use it for encrypting large files directly. It's more for securing smaller things, like the symmetric key itself.
Got it. What's next?
Hashing. This creates a fixed-length fingerprint or digest of data. Algorithms like SHA-256 are common.
Used for checking files haven't been changed, and passwords.
Exactly. Verifying data integrity and securely storing passwords. The key thing about a good cryptographic hash is it's one way. You can't easily reverse it back to the original data.
But there are caveats.
Definitely. Weak or old hash functions can suffer from collisions, where two different inputs give the same hash or attacks trying to find the original input. That's why for passwords, we always add a unique random salt to each password before hashing it.
To stop those rainbow tables.
Precisely. Makes them useless.
Okay, hashing. What else?
Key management. This is huge. It's the whole life cycle of keys, generating truly random ones, storing them securely, distributing them safely, rotating them regularly.
And this is where things often go wrong.
Very often. Because it involves processes, people, secure infrastructure, not just algorithms. A super strong algorithm is useless if the key is just lying around.
Makes sense.
Then digital signatures. They use asymmetric crypto, that public-private key pair again. They confirm a message is authentic, hasn't been tampered with, and came from the person holding the private key.
But they don't hide the message content.
Correct. They provide integrity and authenticity, not confidentiality. If you want secrecy, you still need to encrypt the message separately.
Good distinction. Anything else?
Random number generation. This is critical but often overlooked. We need truly unpredictable numbers for creating keys, nonsense those numbers use once to stop replay attacks and security tokens.
If they're predictable, the system is weak.
Severely weakened. If an attacker can guess your random number, they might be able to guess your key or token. True randomness is hard for computers, so we use special cryptographically secure pseudo-random number generators, CFP-RNGs, that use unpredictable inputs.
Okay, so those are the tools. Now, how do they fail? Where do things go wrong in the real world? It sounds like there are lots of potential pitfalls.
There really are. It's often incorrect implementation, relying on old standards, or just simple oversight. This leads to several distinct exploitable failure types.
Like what? Give us the rundown.
Okay, first, weak encryption algorithms. This is a classic, using stuff like DES, 3DES, RC4. These are computationally broken now.
And for passwords?
Using MD5 or SHA-1, we talked about rainbow tables. These hashes are too fast and too vulnerable, easily cracked.
Right. So weak algorithms is number one.
Number two, and just as critical, is improper key management, storing keys insecurely.
Like in the code itself.
Exactly. In source code, config files, even in the database right next to the encrypted data. It's like leaving the vault key taped to the door.
Or not changing the keys often enough.
That too.
Yeah.
Failing to rotate keys regularly. If a key gets compromised, it could be used forever. Secure key management needs real discipline.
Okay, what's next?
Inadequate transport security. Sending sensitive data over plain HTTP instead of HTTPS.
Still happens.
Still happens. Or using HTTPS but with weak settings, old TLS versions like 1.0 or 1.1, or bad cipher suites like RC4. These allow man-in-the-middle attacks. You need TLS 1.2, ideally 1.3, with strong settings.
Got it. Transport security.
Then, hard-coded secrets. Developers embedding API keys, passwords, database connection strings right into the application code.
And that code ends up on GitHub sometimes.
Far too often. Then anyone scanning GitHub can find those secrets and use them to break into systems or cloud accounts. It's a nightmare.
What else?
Insufficient randomness. Using standard random number generators like math.random in JavaScript or rand in PHP for security stuff like session tokens.
Because they're predictable.
Yes. An attacker might be able to predict the next token and hijack someone's session. You must use cryptographically secure random number generators for anything security related.
Okay. One more.
Finally, insecure cryptographic storage. This is either storing sensitive data with no encryption at all.
Still happens too. Wow.
Unbelievably, yes.
Sure.
Or using really weak encryption, maybe something custom built, which is almost always flawed, or even just encoding like base 64 and thinking it's encryption. It's not.
Yeah.
It offers basically zero protection. False sense of security.
So to make this really concrete for people listening, think about everyday examples, like a website using MD5 for your password. That's a direct result of these failures.
Absolutely. It's like using a padlock from a toy store to secure a bank vault. Or maybe you're on public Wi-Fi, and an app you're using isn't encrypting its traffic properly with strong TLS. Someone nearby could potentially snoop on your session.
And it's not always obvious, right? Like the TLS settings.
Exactly. An app might use TLS, but if it's configured badly, allowing old protocols like SSLv3 or weak ciphers, it creates a huge hole. Just one wrong line in a server config file.
And developers accidentally leaking keys on GitHub?
Still incredibly common. Happens daily. And yes, storing credit card numbers or other really sensitive PII and plaintext databases. It's almost unthinkable from a compliance and security standpoint, but it still occurs. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're real common mistakes with huge consequences.
Let's look at a code example from the source material. Say a Python app storing passwords uses this: hashed password, hashlib.md5, password.encode, .hexdigest. For someone new to this, what's the big red flag there? Why is that bad?
That's a perfect, simple example of using a weak algorithm. MD5 is cryptographically broken for password hashing. It's super vulnerable to those rainbow table attacks we mentioned.
So an attacker gets the database of MD5 hashes.
And they can look them up very quickly using pre-computed tables to get the original passwords. Instant account compromise. Plus, MD5 is incredibly fast to compute, which actually makes brute force guessing much easier for an attacker.
Right, so it's weak and fast to break. What would a secure alternative look like, and how does it fix those problems?
Yeah, speed is the enemy here. A secure alternative would use something like bcrypt. The code might look like hash password, bcrypt.hashpw, password.encode, bcrypt.gensol.
Okay, bcrypt. What makes that better?
The difference is night and day. First, bcrypt.gensalt generates a unique, random salt for every single password.
So even if two people use password 123,
Their hashes will be totally different because the salts are different. This completely breaks rainbow tables. An attacker would need a table for every possible salt, which isn't feasible.
okay, the salt is key. What else?
Second, bcrypt is designed to be intentionally slow. You can even tune its work factor to make it slower or faster. This computational slowness makes brute force guessing incredibly expensive and time-consuming for attackers, even with powerful hardware. It dramatically increases the effort needed to crack passwords.
All right, so we know what these failures are. We know why they happen so often. Now, let's get into the how. How do attackers actually use these weaknesses to cause real harm?
Yeah, understanding the attack vectors really drives home why this stuff is so critical.
These aren't just theoretical, right? People are doing this stuff.
Absolutely. These are techniques actively used in the wild every day. And seeing how a seemingly small crypto mistake can blow up into a full breach is really instructive. Each scenario shows a different path an attacker might take.
Okay, hit us with the first one.
Let's start with weak encryption exploitation. The hash crack scenario. Imagine a website using, say, SHA-1 for password hashing. Not great, but better than MD5.
Yeah.
Though still weak. An attacker finds some other way, maybe SQL injection, maybe a server misconfiguration, and gets access to the database. They dump the table with usernames and those SHA-1 password hashes.
What happens then?
The steps are pretty clear. They take that list of hashes, they fire up powerful tools like Hashcat, and they use those pre-computed rainbow tables, or sometimes just brute force if the password isn't too complex.
And SHA-1 is vulnerable to this.
Yes, SHA-1 is considered broken for password hashing now. It's too fast, and rainbow tables exist. So they can often reverse many of those hashes back to plain text passwords pretty quickly.
And then they can just log in.
Exactly. Log in as users, steal data, escalate privileges, boom. Account takeovers, data breaches, immediate impact.
Okay, that covers weak password storage. What about data moving across the network? You mentioned man-in-the-middle attacks.
Right, man-in-the-middle or MITM attacks, super common, especially on public Wi-Fi scenario. An app sends sensitive data over plain HTTP. Or maybe it uses HTTPS, but it's configured badly, allowing old TLS 1.0 or weak ciphers.
So the encryption is weak or non-existent.
Correct. An attacker gets on the same network, say that coffee shop Wi-Fi. They position themselves between the user and the application.
Like an invisible eavesdropper.
Precisely. Using tools like Wireshark or BetterCap, they can just capture the unencrypted traffic. Or if it's weak TLS, they might be able to exploit known vulnerabilities to decrypt it.
What kind of stuff can they grab?
Really sensitive things. Session cookies, which let them hijack your logged-in session, API keys, even credit card numbers if they're sent improperly.
And they can use those stolen cookies or keys
Immediately. To impersonate the user, access their account, steal data, commit fraud. It's like someone intercepted your mail, opened it, read it, and then used your information.
Okay, MITM. What about those secrets accidentally left in code?
Ah, yes. Hard-coded secrets exposure. This happens way too often. A developer, maybe rushing, maybe just unaware, embeds a sensitive API key directly in the code, like APE equals sklive123.
And then they commit it to GitHub publicly.
Exactly. They push the code to a public repository. Attackers know this happens, so they run automated tools. Trufflehog is a popular one.
What does Trufflehog do?
It constantly scans public repositories across GitHub, GitLab, etc. looking specifically for patterns that look like API keys, passwords, private keys. It's incredibly effective.
Finds the key instantly.
Pretty much. Once found, the attacker grabs that key. Now they can make unauthorized API calls using the company's credentials.
Giving them access to.
Could be cloud services like AWS or Azure, could be payment gateways, could be internal data stores. Depends what the key is for. Leads to massive data leaks, huge financial loss, low effort, high reward for the attacker.
Wow. Okay, one more vector you mentioned was about randomness. That seems less obvious.
It is more subtle, but just as critical. Insufficient randomness attacks. Imagine an application needs to generate something unpredictable, like a session token to keep you logged in, or a password reset token. If it uses a non-cryptographically secure random number generator for this, like its standard library functions not designed for security, the output might be predictable.
How so?
These standard generators can sometimes have patterns. Maybe they're based on the system time or a simple sequence. An attacker analyzes how the tokens are generated.
They figure out the pattern.
If they can, yes. They look for predictability. Maybe the tokens are just sequential numbers or based on a timestamp they can guess. Once they understand the pattern, they can try generating their own tokens that might be valid.
And if they guess a valid one?
They can hijack someone else's active session. They just need to guess a token currently in use by another user. Leads to unauthorized account access, data theft. The unpredictability of keys and tokens is absolutely fundamental. If that breaks, the security falls apart.
Sometimes the best way to really grasp the scale of a problem is to look at a real-world disaster. And for cryptographic failures, the 2017 Equifax breach. It's just the ultimate chilling case study.
It really is. It remains one of the most significant breaches ever, not just because of how many people were affected, but because it perfectly shows how multiple vulnerabilities, including critical cryptographic failures, can combine to cause utter catastrophe.
It wasn't just one thing that went wrong.
Not at all. What's really fascinating and horrifying way about Equifax is how multiple weaknesses lined up. It was a systemic failure, layer after layer, and crypto failures were right at the heart of why it got so bad.
So set the scene. September 2017, Equifax, huge credit reporting agency, drops a bombshell, massive data breach.
Massive is an understatement.
Affecting how many people?
Around 147 million individuals, mostly in the U.S.
That's nearly half the U.S. population at the time. Just incredible. And while the attackers first got in through a known web app flaw,
Right, an Apache Struts vulnerability.
it was the cryptographic failures that really blew the doors open, right? Turned a bad situation into an absolute epic disaster.
Exactly. It was a huge, painful wake-up call for everyone. The initial entry point was that Apache Struts flaw, CVE 2017-5638, a known remote code execution bug. That let them get a foothold.
But the crypto failures were the amplifier.
Totally. They're what exacerbated the impact, turning that initial intrusion into this unprecedented data hemorrhage. Without those widespread crypto weaknesses, the scope might have been much, much smaller.
So what was the main crypto failure there?
The primary one was shockingly basic, honestly. Sensitive data, social security numbers, names, addresses, credit card details. A lot of it was stored either in plain text.
Unencrypted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or with incredibly weak, easily bypassable encryption in their databases. So once the attackers got past that initial Struts vulnerability and into the databases.
The data was just sitting there, ready to be taken.
Essentially, yes. No complex decryption needed for large parts of it. It was just there for the taking. Which leads to the obvious question, why wasn't this critical data protected properly at rest with strong encryption? It was a fundamental, glaring oversight.
That's terrifying, like a bank vault with an open door and cash piled up inside. Just negligence on a massive scale with incredibly sensitive data.
And it wasn't just data sitting still, data at rest. There were issues with data in transit, too.
How so?
Some data was apparently transmitted over weakly encrypted channels, or through systems with badly misconfigured TLS settings. So even if attackers were already inside the network, they could potentially intercept more data as it moved around.
So weak TLS again.
Yeah. Our sources mention examples like allowing old protocols like SSLv3 or weak ciphers like RC4. These are known to be breakable. So even if some data started encrypted, its journey out might have been compromised too, letting attackers grab even more info.
What about the keys for any encryption they did have?
That was another major issue, poor key management. Any keys they were using weren't adequately protected. If attackers could get the keys, then even the encrypted data becomes uselessly exposed.
So the whole system was weak.
It points to a holistic breakdown. Even if they intended to encrypt some things, the processes for managing those keys were flawed. A foundational security principle just wasn't followed.
And there was another factor that made it worse, something about segmentation.
Yes, a critical point was the lack of effective data segmentation. Sensitive data wasn't properly isolated into smaller protected zones within their network.
Meaning once attackers got in?
They could move around relatively easily. They weren't confined to one small area. They could access and siphon off huge volumes of data from across the system. That lack of segmentation turned that initial entry point into a gateway to pretty much everything. Maximum blast radius.
The impact was just devastating, wasn't it? Not just for Equifax, but for all those millions of people.
The fallout was immense. Let's just list it out. Data exposure. 147 million people affected. That included 145.5 million social security numbers.
Chilling.
99 million addresses. 209,000 credit card numbers. The financial loss for Equifax. Over $1.4 billion. Billion with a B. For cleanup, legal fees, settlement.
Regulatory fines.
Yeah. Huge regulatory penalties. A $575 million settlement with the FTC and CFPB in the U.S. The reputational damage was catastrophic. Public trust, gone. Huge brand damage, loss of business.
Lawsuits too, I assume.
Tons of legal consequences. Class action suits from consumers, shareholders, and operationally. They were forced to completely overhaul their security from the ground up. Stronger encryption, key management, patching, everything.
So what are the big lessons here for businesses, for developers, for everyone listening? This is the cautionary tale, but what do we actually learn from it?
The lessons are painful, but crystal clear. And they really paint a picture of layered security. First, encrypt all sensitive data at rest. Use strong stuff like AES-256 with authenticated modes like GCM. No excuses.
Okay, encrypt at rest.
Second, enforce modern TLS. Use TLS 1.2, or even better, 1.3, with strong cipher suites for all data in transit. Lock down that communication channel.
Got it.
Third, that initial Apache Struts bug, it was known, it had a patch available for months. This screams. Timely patch management is non-negotiable. You have to keep software updated.
Patching, patching, patching.
Fourth, secure key management.
Yeah.
It needs to be robust, automated, centralized. Protect those keys like gold. Rotate them regularly.
Right. Keys are critical.
Fifth, data segmentation. Limit the blast radius. Isolate sensitive data so one breach doesn't compromise everything.
Contain the damage.
And finally, robust monitoring and detection. The Equifax attackers were inside for months, undetected, stealing data. You need visibility to spot anomalies quickly. It's about building multiple layers of defense proactively.
Okay, that Equifax story is definitely sobering, a huge reminder of the stakes. But the good news is we know how to prevent this stuff, right? There are clear, actionable steps.
Absolutely. This is where we shift from diagnosing the problem to focusing on the solutions. How do we build systems that are resilient against these failures?
And it's not just one silver bullet, is it?
No, not at all. What's really key here is understanding that prevention requires a multi-layered approach. It's about strong encryption, yes, but also secure key management, secure coding, secure transport, all working together across the entire lifecycle.
Okay, let's break down those layers. Where do we start?
Let's start with secure encryption practices.
Yeah.
For data at rest, sitting in a database, on a file server, you absolutely need strong, modern algorithms.
Like AES?
AES-256 is the gold standard right now. And ideally, use it with an authenticated encryption mode like GCM, Gala counter mode.
Why GCM specifically?
Because GCM provides both confidentiality, keeping the data secret, and integrity, ensuring it hasn't been tampered with. It's a 2-for-1 deal, very robust.
And for passwords, we talked about bcrypt.
Exactly. For passwords, forget MD5 or SHA-1. Use Argon2, bcrypt, or PBKDF2. These are designed specifically for password hashing. They're slow, they use salts. Much, much harder to crack.
So it's about making it computationally expensive for the attacker, almost like a deterrent.
Precisely. That bcrypt.hashpw password.encode, bcrypt.gensalt. The example shows it well. The gensalt creates a unique random salt for each password, killing rainbow tables. And bcrypt itself is intentionally slow, making brute force attacks incredibly time-consuming and resource-intensive. It's all about making the attacker's job as difficult as possible.
And obviously, avoid the old broken stuff.
Absolutely. Rule number 1, Avoid deprecated algorithms. Steer clear of MD5, SHA1, DES, 3DES, RC4 for anything security related. Check resources like NIST SP 800-131A regularly for the latest recommendations. NIST sets the standard here.
Okay. Strong algorithms, authenticated encryption, good password hashing. What's the next layer?
Key management strategies. Remember Equifax, poor key management was a huge factor. You can have the best algorithm, but if the key is exposed, it's useless.
Don't leave the keys under the doormat.
Exactly. So how do you manage keys securely? The best practice is to use dedicated key management services, KMS.
Like the cloud providers offer.
Yeah. AWS KMS, Azure Key Vault, Google Cloud KMS, or enterprise solutions like HashiCorp Vault. These services are built specifically for secure key generation, storage, rotation, and access control.
And definitely don't store keys in the code.
Never. Don't put them in source code. Don't put them in config files checked into Git. Use environment variables, or better yet, fetch them securely from a KMS or secrets manager at runtime.
And rotating keys is important too.
Vital. Automate key rotation regularly. If a key ever does get compromised, rotating it limits the damage window. Our source material gives conceptual examples like using Oz kilometers encrypt or having a rotate key function.
What about really high security situations?
For the highest security needs, consider hardware security modules, HSMs. These are physical devices, tamper-resistant hardware, designed solely to protect cryptographic keys. They keep keys isolated even if the server itself is compromised. Very secure, but also more complex and expensive.
Okay, key management covered. What about data on the move?
That's transport security. Protect data crossing the network. First rule, enforce HTTPS everywhere. No exceptions for sensitive data.
And use modern TLS.
Always use TLS 1.3, or at least TLS 1.2, and configure them with strong cipher suites. That example, SSL cipher suite, ECDHE RSA AES256 GCM HA384, shows a good setup using modern secure ciphers with forward secrecy.
What's HSTS? You mentioned that.
Implement HSTS, HTTP Strict Transport Security. It's a response header the server sends that tells browsers, for the next X amount of time, only talk to me over HTTPS, don't even try HTTP.
So it prevents accidental downgrades to insecure connections.
Exactly. It stops browsers from falling back to HTTP. The example ad header, Strict Transport Security Max Age 315.36320, includes subdomains. Always shows how you might set it in a web server config.
And certificate validation.
Crucial. Validate certificates properly. Use trusted certificate authorities, CAs. For extra paranoia in high-security apps, consider certificate pinning, where the app specifically expects the server to have a certain public key, preventing MITM attacks with fraudulent certificates.
All right. Encryption, keys, transport. What about the code itself? How do developers prevent these bugs from getting in there in the first place?
That comes down to secure coding practices. Building security in from the start. Rule 1. Avoid hard-coding secrets. We keep saying it because it's so common and so dangerous. Use secret management tools like HashiCorp Vault or AWS Secrets Manager instead. Inject secrets securely at runtime.
What about randomness?
Always use cryptographically secure randomness. Use libraries specifically designed for this, like crypto.randombytes in Node.js or os.urandom in Python. Never use standard rand functions for keys, tokens, nonces. Their output might be predictable.
Makes sense. Anything else on coding?
Yes, one more critical point. Sanitize data before encryption. Always validate and clean user inputs. Why? To prevent injection attacks, like SQL injection, that could potentially bypass your security controls before data even gets encrypted or cause other issues. Encrypt clean, expected data, not potential attack payloads.
Okay, knowledge is definitely power here, but tools are what let you take action. We've covered the what, the why, the how to prevent. Now let's talk practical tools and methods. How do you actually check your systems and put these defenses into practice continuously?
Right. And what really stands out here is the need for a proactive, integrated approach. It's not enough to set up strong crypto once and hope for the best. You have to verify it constantly.
So, specific tools.
Definitely. We need specific tools, and we need to weave them into the development lifecycle. Let's start with cryptographic testing tools.
What are some good ones?
SSL Labs SSL Server Test is fantastic. It's a free online tool. You just put in your website address, and it gives you a detailed grade and report on your TLS configuration. Shows weaknesses, old protocols, bad ciphers. Everyone with a public website should use it.
Okay, SSL Labs. What else?
OpenSSL. It's a command line workhorse. You can use it to directly test connections, check certificates, see exactly which protocols and ciphers the server supports. Like running OpenSSL client-connectexample.com.443 gives you raw details.
More technical, but powerful.
Very. And for even deeper dives into TLS configs, there are specialized scripts like CryptCheck and TestSSLesh. They provide really comprehensive reports, digging into specifics.
All right, those focus on the encryption itself. What about finding those accidental leaks, like the hard-coded keys?
That's where vulnerability scanners come in, and they're essential. Trufflehug is brilliant for this.
We mentioned that one earlier.
Yeah, it specifically scans code repositories, local ones, public GitHub repos, whatever, looking for things that look like secrets. API keys, passwords, private keys accidentally committed. Running Trufflehug, get https://github.com/example repo. Can find these before attackers do. I've seen it work wonders.
What about vulnerabilities in libraries you use?
That's where tools like Snyk come in. Snyk scans your project's dependencies, the third-party libraries you pull in. This is critical because a library you use might have its own crypto flaws or use weak methods, bringing that vulnerability into your app. Snyk helps find those.
And for web apps specifically?
Burp Suite is the go-to tool for many web security testers.
Yeah.
It acts as a proxy, intercepts your browser traffic, and lets you analyze everything, including HTTPS requests and responses to spot weak transport security, insecure cookies, and other crypto-related flaws in web apps.
So lots of tools. But running them manually all the time isn't ideal, right? How do you make this part of the regular process?
Exactly. You can't just run these once in a while.
Well,
The best defense is to weave this testing right into your development pipeline. Integrate into CI/CD.
how does that work?
Several ways. Use static analysis security testing, SE tools like SonarQuib or others. These scan your source code automatically every time you build, looking for weak crypto usage, hard-coded secrets, bad practices right in the code.
Catches things early.
Very early. Then there's dynamic analysis security testing, DANCAT. You can integrate tools like SSL Labs or TestSSL.co into your pipeline to automatically test the running application, maybe in a staging environment, after it's deployed, verifies the live configuration.
Okay, SAS for code, DAST for running apps.
And finally, dependency checks. Tools like OWASP Dependency Check or Snyk, integrated into your build process, automatically scan all your third-party libraries for known vulnerabilities, including crypto weaknesses. This whole automated approach, SAST, DAST, dependency scanning, in CI/CD makes security continuous and built in, not just a manual checklist item done occasionally.
Man, it feels like keeping up with current crypto failures is hard enough. But cryptography isn't standing still, is it? It's always evolving. New challenges are popping up, especially with how technology is shifting.
That's right. It's a constant race.
So let's look ahead a bit. What are some of the more advanced topics or emerging challenges we should have on our radar?
Yeah, it raises the question, what's next? What could really change the game? These advanced topics show that crypto security is definitely not solved. We have to keep adapting. And what's really interesting is how fundamental crypto principles need rethinking or reinforcing in these new contexts.
Okay, like what? Where's the first area of change?
Let's talk cryptography in cloud environments. Moving to that cloud offers amazing benefits, flexibility, scale.
But new security challenges too.
Absolutely unique challenges. One is metadata exposure. Cloud providers often have these metadata service endpoints, like AWS's 169.254.169.254. If an attacker can trick a server into making a request to that internal endpoint using an SSRF, server-side request forgery, attack portent, they might be able to steal temporary credentials or sensitive configuration data.
That's subtle.
It is. And then there's the whole shared responsibility model. The cloud provider secures the underlying infrastructure, the data centers, the networks. But you're still responsible for securing your data, your applications, and crucially, your encryption keys within that cloud.
So you can't just assume the cloud provider handles all encryption.
Definitely not. You need to actively use their services, like AWS KMS as your key vault, to manage your keys and encrypt your data properly. And enforce strict access, control the principle of least privilege. So even if one part gets compromised, the attackers can't easily get to your keys or sensitive data.
Okay, cloud challenges. What about that sci-fi sounding one, quantum computing? How real is that threat to today's crypto?
Post-quantum cryptography. It sounds futuristic, but it's a real, long-term, and critical concern.
Why? What can quantum computers do?
Once they become powerful and stable enough, quantum computers could theoretically break the public key algorithms we rely on today. RSA, elliptic curve cryptography, ECC, these are the foundations for TLS, HTTPS, digital signatures, secure key exchange.
So basically break the internet's security.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It could render much of our current secure communication vulnerable overnight. Think online banking, secure email, VPNs, all potentially compromised.
So what are we doing about it?
Preparation involves exploring and eventually migrating to quantum-resistant algorithms. NIST, The U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology is leading a major effort right now to standardize these new algorithms. They're designed based on different mathematical problems believed to be hard even for quantum computers.
So it's about future-proofing.
Exactly. It's not an immediate panic today, but we need a plan for it, especially for data that needs to remain secret for decades. We need to start thinking about transitioning critical systems over the coming years.
Okay, quantum is on the horizon. What about current trends like APIs and microservices? They're everywhere now. Do they bring new crypto risks?
They absolutely do. Cryptographic failures in APIs and microservices is a growing area of concern. With applications broken down into many small communicating services, the attack surface changes.
How so?
Token security becomes absolutely paramount. APIs often use tokens like JWTs, JSON Web Tokens, for authentication and authorization. These tokens need to be properly secured, encrypted in transit, maybe even encrypted at rest if stored. They need to be correctly scoped, only granting minimal necessary permissions. And they need rigorous validation on every single request.
What about attacks on these APIs?
Implementing robust rate limiting is crucial. Without it, attackers could just hammer an API endpoint trying to brute force tokens, guess user IDs, or exploit other weaknesses. Good rate limiting blocks that.
Any specific recommendations for securing API communication?
Using standards like OAuth 2.0 is generally recommended. And for tokens like JWTs, ensuring they are properly signed for integrity and potentially encrypted for confidentiality is key. The source gives a conceptual example like jwt.sign, secret key, expires in sign12. This helps ensure data integrity and confidentiality even in these highly distributed, chatty systems where services are constantly talking to each other. Securing every single one of those conversations is vital. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, that was definitely a deep dive. We've gone from the absolute basics of encryption all the way to the Equifax catastrophe and even looking ahead to quantum computers.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
It's just so clear that cryptographic failures aren't some theoretical niche problem. They are real, they are pervasive, and the risk is incredibly critical. Affects pretty much every digital thing we do.
Absolutely. And if there's one key takeaway from all this, it's that robust data protection isn't a one-time task. It's a continuous evolving effort. You can't just set it and forget it.
Right.
By consistently using strong algorithms like AES 256 and Argon 2, by implementing secure automated key management, maybe using a KMS, by enforcing strong TLS 1.3 for transport, and by baking proactive security testing right into development pipelines. That's how organizations can significantly cut down these risks.
It has to be a priority from the start.
Exactly. Prioritize cryptography at every stage. Design, development, deployment, maintenance. Make it foundational, not an optional extra you bolt on later.
So for everyone listening, what does this really mean for you? Whether you're coding an app, running a business, or honestly just using your phone or computer every day. Understanding this stuff matters.
It empowers you.
Yeah, it empowers you to ask better questions, maybe demand stronger security from the services you use. And with everything moving to the cloud, everything driven by APIs, dealing with these crypto failures is more essential than ever if we want systems we can actually trust.
Couldn't agree more.
So here's something to think about as you go about your digital life. Given how common these cryptographic failures are, that staggering 67% number, how confident are you really that the platforms you trust the most, your bank, your social media, your doctor's portal, are they truly protecting your most sensitive data with strong, modern cryptography? And maybe more broadly, what responsibility do we have just as users to push for better, more transparent security standards from the companies we rely on every single day?